Hello and welcome to the Final Frontiersmen, a YouTube channel about all things Trek with a heavy focus on Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Today, as you can see, I am not alone. I have a special guest with me who is connected with the beloved Star Trek Adventures and something a little bit bigger as well, if you want to call it that. So, this is Spader. If you may have seen him on other Star Trek Adventures related shows, but he decided to join us today and we couldn't be happier. So, Al, can you please introduce yourself?
How's it going, everyone? I'm Al Spader, freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures. I also do a couple of other little projects. I'm working on some 2d20 world builder stuff as well. And I'm excited to be here to be a part of this.
Yeah, I'm excited. You're our first real link, just interview or guest wise into Star Trek Adventures, and I see you a lot on Continuing Conversations. I see you all over the Facebook group. I encounter you everywhere where Star Trek Adventures is involved, and this is our first time talking, so I'm really happy to have you. So thank you
Yeah,
again. Thank you for agreeing to this.
and I appreciate all the reviews that you do of the books. I think they're very detailed. I think you are unbiased. I love your rating system, like using yellow alert, red alert, black alert. I think that's fantastic. And I think, you have some of the best reviews out there. So I'm excited.
You're very kind. You're very kind. I'm going to start blushing here, so we'll keep going on. But before we start with the interview, before I start with questions, I just have to point out that one thing that everyone loves is your L Cars shirt, and so glad to see it here today. And like we talked a little bit before we started. Like, are we going to wear a uniform or not? And I wasn't sure if I was going to have a uniform, but I was hoping you were going to have the Elcar shirt, so I'm glad you agreed to it. So thank you very much.
Well, I got to say, the Riker maneuver shirt is
Oh yeah,
every bit as cool.
yeah, yeah. I figure if you're
Fantastic.
going Elcars, I have to do something to keep up with you. But
Absolutely.
let's get into the interview. First of all, of course, Star Trek Adventures. It's about Star Trek, the franchise that we all love. So, just basic introduction here. How did you get into Star Trek? What really grabbed you about it?
So I remember as a little kid, I think the first thing I remember seeing is the end of Star Trek II. We had some friends of the family um, that were really into Star Trek, and I remember as a kid being like 4 or 5 years old, seeing that on television. Each week they would come over with part two, and then part three, and then part four went to the theaters. And I remember that I think
Oh
that might be
wow.
one of the first movies that I ever saw in a theater was Star Trek Four, and I remember really enjoying that. I never really got into the original series stuff that was kind of before me, and even in
Hmm.
syndication, I didn't really get into it. But I remember when Next Generation hit, like it was family meeting time. Like we
Good.
all got together as a family. Every now and then, that same group of friends would come over, and we would watch Next Generation together. So that was really where my love for Star Trek started. It Of course, I became a high school kid and didn't want to hang out with my family anymore, and so like went off to college and had that type of stuff going on, and that's when Deep Space Nine and Voyager hit. So I kind of missed that pocket. But I got after I got out of college and started teaching during my summer breaks, I would binge watch Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and loved them. And I'm just now working my way through Enterprise for the
Oh
first time.
really? Really?
I just finished season two. So, um, and then I saw, wait, Picard, like this is intriguing, and that kind of brought me back in. I watched Picard season one, started Discovery, and now there's so much Star Trek all the time
Yeah.
that I'm a really big fan.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I'm kind of similar too. I did not watch Enterprise when it was airing. I finally watched it for the first time maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was nice. It felt like a return of an old
Yeah,
friend. It felt like that old '90s era Trek. So, are you enjoying it so far?
I think that there are a lot of people down on it, and I don't think they have a reason to be. There are a few episodes here and there that are kind of cringe,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, like I'm really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the series they have ups and downs, good episodes, bad episodes. Yeah, I fell in love with Enterprise more than I thought I would. So I'll
Same.
be curious to hear your thoughts on it as you get to the end.
Yeah.
I think especially you're on season two now, right? You said.
I just finished season 2 last night.
You didn't start season 3 yet, right?
Correct.
Please tell me what you think about the change to the theme song when you
Okay.
when you get to season 3. All right, so you got into Star Trek and with family, that is great. Did you have, or maybe now that you've seen most of the series, do you have now a favorite character, favorite captain, anything like that?
I mean, I think in general, Deep Space Nine, I think was so revolutionary for what it
Mm,
was, right? Because it was serialized television. At least half of the season was usually serialized,
mm,
and so I really, really loved um, that concept, that idea. Fell in love with Cisco. I thought being able to see so many dimensions of the leader, the father, the holy person, like I thought he was very multidimensional, which I think sometimes Star Trek loses sight of in a lot of their characters.
yeah.
So I would rank that all up there at the best, the best. Follow closely behind. I'm loving Pike on Strange New
Yeah,
Worlds.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we still need to see how that all plays out. But he might well jump up to my favorite captain. We'll see.
Yeah, Strange New Worlds really just straight out of the gate. It's been good. It's been fun. I've been enjoying the whole ride. So I can see Pike overtaking a lot of captains on the best character list soon.
For sure. Other than that, I do really love Saru from
Yeah,
Discovery.
yeah, yeah.
I think people sleep on his story in general, and especially now in the 32nd century, being split between two places at
Mm,
once, and like, I thought that the story with the Vihari and the threat ganglia was fascinating.
yeah,
The fact that they had this whole mythos that ended up being fake,
yeah, yeah.
was just such a cool storyline. And so yeah, he's up there near the top of my favorites as well.
And that storyline was so very Star Trek. It's like a clash of two cultures. There's a lot of how deep do you interfere in it, but at the same time, like it's really informing this character that I so want a series with him being the lead, like the main captain. Like let's get an alien captain for the first
Yep.
time, like as the star.
Yeah, I
So
mean, and when he did take over as captain for a short time, I loved that he was bad at it. Like, I
yeah,
loved
yeah,
that he didn't know like
yeah.
what to do in many cases, and he made bad calls, and he
Mhm.
wasn't perfect all the time. And I think in general, that whole package is something that Star Trek has needed for a long time.
Yeah, there has to be the variety, right? You don't want to see everyone succeeding all the time. You want to see them fail because that's what leads to growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Saru is definitely one of my favorite new characters in the whole Star Trek franchise. So,
That was why I insisted when I found out we were doing the Discovery character packs for
yeah.
Star Trek Adventures. I was like, please let me write the Kelpian species, and Jim
Oh,
gave it to me.
you got that
Yes.
one. Good, good. That is great. Oh well, I guess since that's leading into Star Trek Adventures, why don't we just go that way there? Did you get into Star Trek Adventures first as a player, or were you hired first?
So I started Star Trek Adventures. I mean, I've been a gamer for all my life, right?
Mm,
Dungeons and Dragons was especially fifth edition. I
mm,
was into that hot and heavy since its release,
yeah.
and then the pandemic hit, and all my friends who now could no longer meet every week to play D&D, we said, hey, let's try something new. And I was like, well, I've got this Star Trek Adventures
Mm,
quick start. You want to check this out? I've got the starter set. Let's try it. We did it and loved it.
mm,
So I said, all right, well, we're going to start. We'll do a campaign. Like we'll do a full campaign, one season, see how it goes, see if everybody likes it. And I did a campaign based called Out of Time,
okay.
um, which was based around Kelsey Grammer's character
Ah,
from Next Generation.
yeah.
So it was that ship, the Bozeman,
Mm,
and like what's it like in the 2300s with a old 20 22, like what is it like having this old 100-year-old ship among a new crew, a new fleet and whatnot. And so that was a fun story to tell.
yeah.
Well, interestingly, I found on Steam there's something called Tabletop Simulator,
Oh yeah.
where you can play board games with other people, but they also had a setup for Star Trek Adventures that someone had made.
Yes.
I was like, let's try this. We'll all log in. There's a virtual tabletop there. three-dimensional. You can actually like flip over cards and roll dice and whatnot. And we loved it. So I started taking screenshots and doing videos, and I posted them to the Facebook group, which led Michael Dismuke to find me. He's like, "Whoa, what is this?" So we did a big discussion about that.
Yeah.
And then one time I did a panel about being a GM with Michael, and Jim Johnson happened to be on it.
Oh, wow. Lucky.
Yeah. It was just like a happenstance. And we ended up talking for way longer than we recorded. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email from Jim that said, "Hey, I have this document that I would like you to read as someone who is new to the game." Someone who's not very familiar with Star Trek Adventures, et cetera, et cetera. And he sent me the PDF for the Shackleton Expanse.
Oh, wow. Oh, my.
So I said, all right, so I'll come at this from an angle of someone that plays other RPGs.
Yeah.
So I sent him probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 comments of things that I thought I liked, things that I thought could be better, things that I thought could be tweaked, along with recommendations of how to tweak them. And 2 weeks after that, after I submitted that to him, he's like, "Hey, do you want to write this mission brief pack?"
Wow.
And I was like, "All right, well, like I guess he liked it." And actually, if you look in the Shackleton Expanse guide or campaign guide, at the bottom there's a special thanks or like a special thank you thing. My name is on it, and Michael Dismuke's name is on it, because he did the same thing to Michael Dismuke.
Oh.
Like, we both got started on the same book.
Is that how? Oh, I didn't know Michael started same time as that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Whoa, that is so cool. How lucky is that, though?
Yep.
Not only like getting that sneak peek and getting to give your own like views, just coming in from another, being a fan of another game system and coming in and reading through this, but then having that be the springboard to get you into Star Trek Adventures writing. That is so amazing.
And that's the genius of Jim Johnson too, right? He wants outside views. He wants diversity. He wants to hear what's going on in other communities. And that's how he makes his decisions, which is, that's how we ended up with things like Captain's Log. Like he definitely wants to learn more about gaming as a whole, and he appreciates everyone's insight from all the gaming communities out there.
Definitely, he is one of the most rare individuals I've encountered in the gaming world, because he is so, what he says you can trust, you can take as him being sincere, that when he says send your ideas, he means it. He will read your ideas, he will check your ideas, he will give you feedback on them. He is probably the most open and welcoming person in the gaming community I've ever encountered, online or off. He really is a great guy, and lucky you get to work with him a lot there.
Yeah. So I did the Anomalies mission brief pack, and then the Psychic Incursions mission brief pack, and those were like my first 2 writing pieces that I ever did for him. Well, he's like, "All right, you have a month to do this. Get it to me with X amount of words." Well, Psychic Incursions, I got to him within 2 weeks.
Wow.
And Anomalies, I got to him within 2.5 weeks. So he was very excited at how quickly I wrote and how good the content was.
Yeah.
And that was when he's like, "Hey, I've got this next big project. It's called the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide.
Yeah.
How do you feel about writing for those?" And I was like, "All right, I can bring my insight from other game systems as well." And we were off to the races at that point.
Yeah, I talked about in the review for the when I talked about in multiple reviews for Player's Guide and Game Master's Guide, those 2 books are just so, I think they are core role-playing books. No matter what game you're playing, even if it's not going to be Star Trek Adventures, the advice, and it's likely coming from that point of view that you mentioned, you're coming from so many years of gaming and so many different gaming systems, that what you are sharing with the reader is advice that holds true no matter what you're playing. And those books are so good. I think the way I described it to people when I was telling them about it, it feels like you are having a discussion with some really good friends who are passionate about role playing and just sharing what they love about it. And that's what those two books feel like. And I
Yeah.
always recommend them to people when they want to know what to get for STA. But I tell them, but even if you're not going to play STA, you should still buy those books because they will help you no matter what game you're playing.
Yeah,
That's
I
so good.
appreciate that. I mean, we were worried about, maybe we didn't want to get too philosophical, but at the same thing, we wanted it to be a toolbox for any game system. There is a lot of Star Trek stuff in there, but a lot of the stuff about sculpting a narrative and, setting up a game and things like that, it's like RPG agnostic. Like it could be spread across any RPG system, which is
Definitely.
um, spectacular.
Yeah, well, you and all the writers, I mean, you really knocked it out of the park. And you've been working on some of the really big, amazing projects that have come out in the recent past for Star Trek Adventures. You, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were on Utopia Planitia.
Yep,
That is that one that just broke the internet, as they say, for Star Trek Adventures. That's what everyone was looking for. You did the Lower Decks guide as well, right? The campaign
yep,
guide, and
yep.
that one really surprised me. And I think I have to say I think I mentioned in the review because a lot of times I forget to say the stuff I want to say once the camera starts rolling, but
Of course.
I was surprised how similar it was to the player's guide and the game master's guide in the Star Trek. I would say Star Trek lore aspect of how to run a game that feels like Star Trek. That there is really good advice in there. That not just for playing in a Lower Decks campaign, whether that be being the TV series or the animation Lower Decks, or just the concept of being a lower rank character, but just telling you what is a trope in Star Trek, what
Right.
makes an episode feel like a Star Trek episode. The advice in there, it went way above what you would expect on the cover.
Yeah, and I think Michael Dismuke brought a lot of that because he does a lot of organizational stuff in his day job. So he is, he has very high level understanding about what hierarchy means and what career planning means and things like that. So we were like, yes, let's get it all in there
Yeah.
because this is relevant stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take that Lower Decks book and half of it could just be used, like if you're playing a naval warfare RPG,
Oh yeah.
you could use almost half of that book in that RPG. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Definitely.
there's
Yeah.
some Star Trek stuff in there as well, but like,
Yeah.
you can parse out a lot of the stuff to say, all right, what is a midshipman? Like, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. The detail is
So yeah,
great.
that was a cool book. Um, Utopia Planitia, I loved because we knew that we were going to be bringing in the Star Trek Online stuff,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but none of the writers really have a ton of experience with Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, this is going to be my baby. I'm going to play. I'm going to go do research and whatnot. And so like when I got assigned talents and weapons and things like that, I was like, I'm sure there are abilities from Star Trek Online that we can port in. And so like I was like creating the spreadsheet of all the different things and how it might work within the system and whatnot. So that was really fun to do. And then Lower Decks, I got to do a lot like of the creature stat blocks
Oh yeah.
and the way that they like. I did every non-Starfleet creature for the most part,
Okay.
and the way that that show molds NPCs uh,
Mm.
allows for a lot of fun with writing them in the game. So that was awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, that I mean those two books alone are some of the best releases for Star Trek Adventures in the last what year and a half or whatever it's been since Utopia Planitia came out. But then the latest release too. You also were a part of that, were you not? Captain's Log.
Yes. So Captain's Log. So this was a weird moment in kind of Star Trek Adventures, and I think you might have heard Jim talk about it. How we had lots of different projects going on at the same time. So Michael took over lead writer of Captain's Log,
Mm.
and I took over lead writer of another project that we have not announced yet.
Ooh.
So I didn't get to have as much play in Captain's Log as I would have liked, because I was working on another project. But I did get to do. I did get to go in there and talk about system with them, mechanics, because I love game mechanics like that. Like system design and game mechanics is like one of my favorite things to do. My brain just loves that type of exercise. And so I got in there and we were talking about rolling the 2d20s and figuring out, what's a hit, what's a not a hit, and so on and so forth. So I was glad that they let me talk about that. And then in the random tables, I was super excited that I got to do like all the species, the type of animals and things like that. Because like I'm a science teacher in real life, so I teach kingdom, order, phylum, and all that stuff with my kids. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna put tables in here that talk about what kingdom is it, what phylum is it, like and like what adaptations they have, and so on and so forth. So it was like really getting a chance to bring a bit of my teacher ness to Star Trek Adventures, which was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome that you can mix in something you're passionate about in your career and incorporate that into something really useful and really creative for the game that you love too. That is so cool. But Captain's Log, no, I think as big as some of the other releases were, I'm kind of shocked by the massive explosion of fanfare this is getting online. It's bringing in a lot of people who haven't played STA yet because they don't have a group or they prefer solo gaming. And I told Jim about this when we were chatting online. Not that I talked to him, but one of the biggest questions that I've got, or the question I got the most since we started this channel, is people messaging saying, "Is there a way to play this solo?" And I would always have to say, "Oh, I hear people do it," and I would tell them to go ask on the forums, go do that because I don't know anything about it. And now you see with the release, just the sheer amount of new people coming in and saying how they've been waiting for this since they heard about Star Trek Adventures because they love Star Trek, but they again don't have a group or they just prefer to do solo role playing. And you see it all over all the social media now for STA that there is such a loud positive, and that's the important thing. You hear a lot of loud voices when the products get released, but not always positive, but it's all positive. People are just saying how happy they are, and you're getting all these new creative ideas. You must feel great seeing that kind of response to so many of the projects you're in, but especially this one.
Yeah, I think, well, especially because we weren't quite sure how this was going to be taken, right? We weren't sure if the community was ready for a full-on solo experience. But we made the conscious decision that this is Star Trek. We're going to be bold, and we are going to put forth the best product possible. And the fact that I'm hearing from people that it was the talk of Gen Con on the floor around the RPG area. Like there were people coming over and buying the book that had never even, heard of Star Trek Adventures.
Yeah.
Because this is a major IP that is currently on television,
Yes.
right? And a solo experience. So, I'm excited to see how excited everyone is. The number of like random podcasts and YouTube videos of people doing their adventure is so fun to see.
It's exploded so much more than what I've seen thus far for Star Trek Adventures. Just people coming out, just sharing, here's my adventure. I just started an adventure. And they're sharing their actual captain's logs that they made. And like, wow, this is like really growing the community. It's a surprise for me. Because like I don't do solo role playing, so I thought like, oh, this is an interesting idea. And then I look behind me and there's an army charging for it. It's like, wow, there's this many people. But also, wasn't it Drive Through RPG? The top 5 sellers were all 4 covers because there's 4 different covers for Captain's Log, and I think the last one, Lower Decks, Like,
Yeah.
so Star Trek Adventures took over Drive Through RPG. That is impressive. That
Yeah,
is,
that speaks volumes.
it
And
does.
here's another cool thing that I'm planning on piloting this year. We'll see if I can actually make it work. But I'm going to use the captain's log as um, like the core to my writing class at school
Oh,
when I work with the
wow.
kids. So it's going to take a while before I can amass 20 copies
Mhm.
for the kids,
Yeah.
but I've got 5. So we'll be, using that to talk about world design, character design,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. And then they'll actually get to play a game in the world that they design.
Oh, I hope you share that somewhere that's easy to access, whether it's on continuing missions or on continuing conversations or somewhere. Like, I would love to hear that as a teacher myself, who has had a couple disastrous experiences trying to incorporate games into the classroom. I would love to see how you use that. And I mean, Captain's Log, I don't want to keep going on and on about, but it deserves it. But I don't want to waste all our time. It's just so streamlined and smooth and easy to play, and the way you can all those matrices that generate the whole game for you. I'd love to see what the students come up with under whatever kind of guidance that you provide with how they're to design it. So please,
Yeah.
don't keep it to yourself. By all means.
Yeah, once I do it, whether it's successful or a failure, I'll get it up somewhere for us to watch
Oh, please,
or to talk
please.
about.
Yeah, definitely. And also, since you mentioned you're also working on another top secret assignment, I kind of feel like I jumped the gun and I should have waited a little bit more to invite you. But now that we have a little connection here, please come back whenever that new project comes out and introduce it to us once it's available
Yeah,
for the
it's
mass
something that
market.
I'm super excited about, and it was an awesome experience being a lead writer and managing some other writers and things like that. So I have no idea when it's going to drop, but I'm going to be excited to talk about it once it does.
Yeah, well, that's good news, and good luck to you. I'm looking forward to that. Don't know what it is, but so far everything's been a home run. So, I mean, I'm excited.
Yep.
But if we're going to follow on that line, I'm going to jump back to what you said a few minutes ago, but also connected with the whole writer thing. You talked about that you really love game mechanics and designing mechanics for role playing game. You love the inner workings like that, and you are now connected very, very, very deeply with game mechanics as you have designed your own game. You put your own game together for Modiphius, right? The Modiphius
Yeah.
2d20 world builders program, correct?
So back in, I want to say it might have been February. It might have been March. Modiphius announced their World Builders program,
Mhm.
which is basically a community content program. Like a lot of these companies do this on Drive Through RPG already, and Modiphius took a while to get theirs up because they wanted it to be streamlined and make it make sense and make sure they were ready for it. So when they made this announcement, there were 2 different things that you could do on Drive Through RPG. The first one is they opened up Octung Cthulhu,
Mm.
which is one of their in-house IPs that they own the rights to. You could just write missions for it and post it and sell it, and you could make money doing that. The other thing they did is they opened up the system resource document, which is referred to as the SRD, and they said anybody can use this document to make a role playing game for our World Builders program and post it on Drive Through RPG. The IP will remain yours, but any mechanics that you add into your game become part of the collective of the 2d20
Mm.
system. So anybody else could use your mechanics if they wish.
Mm.
Which was a really cool way to do that, right? Because now whatever I create thought wise for a world or an adventure or anything like that is mine always. But at the same time, I'm supporting other writers by adding new mechanics to the SRD for them to use. So there during the big fiasco that was happening with Wizards of the Coast at the time, with their open game license,
Mm.
I joked around on the internet a few times about different concepts that you could use to make your own game. Don't worry about Dungeons and Dragons. Just go out and make your own game.
Mm.
And one of the things I tossed out was the idea of, hey, there's a bunch of robots on a planet. They were terraforming the planet. They all gained sentience before humans arrived. Go write that game. And then I started getting like little messages of people saying, hey, that's a really cool idea. That's a really cool idea. Well, 2 weeks later, Modiphius announced this program, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this game for the Modiphius World Builders
Oh,
program.
wow. Yeah.
So I came up with the idea of sentience,
Mm.
and sentience is you role play as a robot that has awakened, and now you got to figure out: do you build a society while while waiting for humanity to return? How do you respond when humanity returns? Things like that were the core concepts of the game.
That is so interesting. So it started just because again there was a whole Wizards of the Coast kerfluffle, and a lot of people were upset. I think I even liked a couple of your tweets where you were telling people get out and design games. I didn't see the one of you designing Sentience accidentally, but I know a lot of people were saying that in the Star Trek world. But it's interesting that then you got the chance to do exactly that. So, I, well, before you get into just explain more about what the game of Sentience is like and how it fits into the whole 2d20 system and what's different from it, can you just tell a little about how much work did you have to put in to build your own role playing system?
Sure. So I knew right away. I mean, I love Star Trek Adventures, so I knew that I wanted to not verge too far away from the Star Trek Adventures mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do all this by myself. So I reached out to Allison Seib, who
Mm-hmm.
has also written for Star Trek Adventures. She's pretty prolific as far as inclusivity, and science fiction in general. Wrote a bunch for Starfinder and things like that. So I emailed her, and she was like, I have to finish a project right now, but once I'm done with it, I would like to have a crack at this. So she did the whole lore section for me,
Oh, good.
and so that actually saved me some time. But otherwise, it took me. So Modiphius, when they announced the World Builders program, they said the first 5 projects that are up, they would meet the first $100 that those projects made. Modiphius would meet that and also give
Oh,
$100 to
wow.
the writers. So my goal was to get it up by that point.
Yeah.
It was more work than that. I was just doing this on Microsoft Word in my spare time,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was like, all right, well, I think the concept is good, so I'm going to shoot for the next goal, which they said I think it was June 1st,
Mm-hmm.
that Modiphius would choose which one project that is up they believe is the most likely to be a decent product moving forward, one that they support. And they were going to match the first $500 that one made.
Ooh.
And so I was like, I'm definitely going to have Sentience up before that.
Okay.
And I was able to do that. So it took about 2 months total
Mm-hmm.
to get the core rule book and the quick start posted.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was just a Word document, like not a great layout. No, in fact, no layout at all, really. And I was like, I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put it, pay what you want. If you want to put some money my way, I'm just going to reinvest it back in the project, knowing that I wanted to do layout in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, an opportunity came to me a couple weeks ago, and somebody was like, hey, I can do this with the layout. Just like randomly reached out to me. And Jay from the Yellow Hand said, hey, look at this cover. And I was like, wow, that's stunning. Could you do that with the whole book? And so just today, we updated to the revised core rule book
Oh,
with the
wow.
new layout. which you got a sneak peek at earlier this week.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, you sent that to me yesterday, and I tried my best to read through it. I told you about family issues interrupting, but I got through the lore section, and I'm almost done reading about the different types of robots that are available
Nice.
there, the different kinds there, and it's really fascinating. And I don't assume you've watched any episode of our live action series or a live play series that we do for Star Trek, but Star Trek Adventures. But one of my favorite topics though are artificial intelligence or robots and like new kind of species like awakening like that, where they're discovering this whole new form of existence. So this topic, the concept of sentience, like really speaks to me. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting through the entire guide. So thank
Yeah,
you for
and I
that.
think
Thank you.
well, I appreciate that. I do. Um, the concept right now, I think, is even more important, right? Because we're so the idea of artificial intelligence right now is such a hot topic,
Yeah.
specifically in our industry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like and then like if you go back through history, you look at Terminator, you look at all these movies, AIs always are the bad guy.
Yeah.
So my concept, I want to flip that upside down. I want to say, what if there's a hopeful ending to this whole AI situation?
Yeah.
And that hopeful ending is sentient robots creating their own society, how they see fit, and not being the bad guys. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I
So
like about it. Yeah. It's not the cliche that you get when it's robots suddenly becoming self-aware. It's it is, as you say. I don't think that's a word that I was thinking of, but yeah, you're exactly right. It's a hopeful story because they're positive, they're just trying to live their life. But I like one of the aspects in the game that how they are coming to grips with their newfound sentience, and you as a player being one of those robots feeling the emotions, and emotion plays a huge mechanical role in the game as well as a narrative role. And that's one of the changes you made to that D20 system that we might be familiar with in Star Trek Adventures, the emotions, right?
right. So for stats that a character has, you've got your core protocols, which is what humanity programmed you to do when you landed on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And there are six different roles that have different protocols. And when you build a character, you go through the life path and you start with a role. Well, are you an engineer? Are you an assembler? Are you, an analyzer? Like these are all purposes that you are built for. Then on top of that, when you awakened, you started feeling emotions. Well, we know that as human beings, emotions are very powerful and can very much inform our actions, right? And so my concept was taking the emotions that a robot is feeling, and those ranks that you put into those emotions are how good you have become at managing those emotions and using those emotions to inform your actions. So it's I kind of took it. Dune has this concept where they have drives and what's driving you to do something. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but I don't think that's where we want to go here. I want to focus on how are you feeling when you do this particular action.
Mm.
And I've run a bunch of live plays and people saying they want to do stuff, and I paused and I was like, all right, how are you feeling about this right now? And then we find the emotion that mostly fits, and then we make our roles. And so that's been really cool.
Yeah.
I've gotten lots of positive feedback about, well, I never stopped to think about how my character is feeling when it's taking an action.
Yeah. That I think that caught my attention first when I was just skimming through it. And I thought that is such not just a new creative idea for the mechanics of how to roll for it, but also conceptually for these robots who are becoming sentient, becoming self-aware. Of course, emotion is going to be a major drive because it's something they never had before. So that playing a role in every action that they're taking, I thought, wow, that, as I've said before, Star Trek Adventures, the D20 rule system really fit the IP of Star Trek so perfect. It felt like the mechanics and the narrative was the perfect match. And I think you made the right kind of adjustment for that system to fit the world you created, because that I can't think of a better way to express how robots would be going about performing actions with these newfound feelings that they have. They were, of course, that would be a significant part of what's driving them to do what they're doing. So it goes beyond the narrative of role playing, like how's my robot feeling now, how's my character feeling now, but that is also going to determine how they are performing mechanically. So bravo for that. That was really clever. So I love that.
So thank you. I appreciate that. That was something I was pretty proud of. And the second thing that I was really proud of, you might not have gotten there yet, was about values. So we still use values like we do in Star Trek Adventures, right? And these values are very core to you as a person. However, they operate a little bit differently in Sentience, in that there's no determination in this game or anything like that. You're a robot. You are really good at doing things, right? However, if you want to get a similar benefit, like spending determination in Star Trek, instead in Sentience, there's something called a value sacrifice. And so these values are what make you sentient, essentially. Okay. So if you want to say, get a die that's automatically rolled a 1 to your pool, like you could in Star Trek Adventures by spending determination. In Sentience, what you do is you look at your values and say, okay, which one of these 3 values least applies to the situation I'm in? And then you cross it off. If you ever have 0 values, you revert to being an AI.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
I haven't gone that far yet. Okay.
Yeah. So there are mechanics in the game to recover values. And I actually encourage people to role play what that looks like. So there are recovery centers all around the city that have started opening up. And some of them might be like Reiki. Some of them might be like yoga. And like all this mindfulness, social, emotional type recovery centers that allow you to regain values as you progress.
That is, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I didn't get that far in the book, but that is good. So you sacrifice your last value and you just become AI. Nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love how, again, same with Star Trek Adventures, but I love how you have the mechanics truly reflect the narrative that is part of this world, that's part of the story. That is good. Wow. Yeah, you came up with 2 really hardcore awesome ideas to build into this game. That is
nice. I was happy with those. I think, and especially because, like I said, I've played almost every 2d20 game.
Okay.
I most enjoy Star Trek Adventures, obviously. And so like I wanted this, and it's science fiction. It has a lot of similarities with Star Trek Adventures. In fact, I would consider putting this planet in an episode of Star Trek Adventures and just use my mechanics for the robots that the people in Star Trek meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could very easily, take out the terraforming robots and now they're exocomps. And we've got a very similar story, right? This is very similar to that Star Trek Next Generation episode. With the exocomps. So,
definitely, yeah. And the whole concept itself, especially, it's basically a new species emerging. It's a new civilization. It fits perfectly into what we've seen in Star Trek in so many ways. And do they count as actual sentient organism? Will they be recognized as such? Like, they have emotions, but is that just part of the programming? There's a lot you could do mixing this in, but I love that this whole game is not just a single episode of Star Trek, which you can only cover so much in a single episode. This, you get to explore every single aspect of the society that you would like and the repercussions. I like how humanity is this almost vague mythological type thing
Yes.
in the distance that they are no longer connected with, and it's almost like, just reading through the lore part, it can almost be akin to like religion, where it's like, well, that's the creator, but where is the creator? They're not there. It's coming back one day, but is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? They're never coming back. They were never. I love the whole philosophical aspects that are put into this lore. It really turns these robots, these sentient robots, into kind of a reflection of our own society, and you could take it whatever direction that your group wants. And that
Yeah.
is, yeah, I the whole concept was just amazing to me, and the more I'm reading through this book, the more I'm falling in love with it. So I
That's awesome.
might end up running a one shot eventually, but it's so hard for me to run games with my group. I talk about that so much. It's not that my group is bad. If anyone's just tuning in, like, wow, you got jerks. Just we're spread out across the world, like, I don't know, 8, 9 different countries. So
Yeah.
it's hard to organize a game. But if I can, I think especially with my group, it would be pretty easy to run like a one shot to show them what it's like, because everyone's familiar with STA now, so it won't take too much work to jump into and get a hang of how to run Sentience.
Yeah, and one of the ideas, or one of the things that I purposely did, was I did not put into this book when is humanity returning.
Yeah.
I did not put in what does the city and world look like.
Mm-hmm.
I did not put it, you know what I mean? Because I want GMs to actually go through and build that world. So like when I run this game, the city looks like 50s and 60s sitcom suburbia,
Yeah.
you know. But if you want to run it to look like a steampunk society, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like aesthetically, that's what I choose to do. But other people, as long as you're following the four core premises,
Mm-hmm.
which is humanity is supposed to return someday,
Mm-hmm.
period. Whether you want to define when, whether you want this to take place, all right, well, humanity was supposed to return 2 years ago. Why aren't they here? However, you decide to do that as GM's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what caused the awakening. It just happened. That's the second core premise. The third one is every robot is connected in this global network to something called the hub. The
Mm-hmm.
hub is basically a massive computer processing plant that all robots can like communicate with, and so on and so forth. Think like computers to a network. And then lastly, the fourth one is nobody has been able to recreate sentience in any new
Mm-hmm.
robots they've built. So as we're building more repair droids, or assembly droids, things like that, sentience has not occurred again. So
Mm-hmm.
and not every robot on the planet gains sentience when the awakening happens. So as long as you stick to those premises, the world can be whatever the heck you want it to look like. I don't want to tell you that. I want to give you some creative liberties here.
And that's another thing I like, and that's just how I am as a reader myself. Like, when I read a book, I don't like an author that goes into too many details and paints every single aspect for me. I like using my own imagination to picture it the way I want it. And I read in the Sentience book, that message you said right there. Like, you want the GM, you want the groups to design it the way that fits them, the way that they like, whatever style they want. So I enjoy having that freedom, especially for a brand new IP like this. That, unlike Star Trek, you can't just go and watch an episode to see what it looks like. So that saves a lot of people from being tripped up, like, well, I don't know what the world's like. Yeah, it's whatever you want it to look like.
Right.
So that's perfect.
I have had some feedback, Bill, that people would like at least like some like general concepts or ideas that they could work with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a future, right now we're working on a adventure codex, which has 4 adventures in it. That'll be the next release.
Okay.
But I think after that, I'm going to work on um, like a toolkit
Mm-hmm.
for GMs and for players. And I might put in there like, hey, here are some concepts you could choose to use for your world.
Okay.
So the story starts almost like a little GM's guide from Star Trek Adventures, like with all these little conceptual ideas that you could use
Hmm.
if you wanted to. Because I have had two GMs specifically reach out about that. So
Yeah.
um,
Again, different people have like different levels of tolerance of how much they need developed for them or how much they want to do on their own. So I can see where that would be necessary, and it's great to hear that you're already working on it.
awesome. Yeah, it's we got a lot going on,
That's
and
good.
I've got a couple other 2d20 projects that we're talking about as well, for the World Builders program, and I'm hoping that we could get a couple more of those out next year.
Oh, that's good. Oh, so different from Sentience.
Yeah, so we're working on an Age of Sail
Okay. Oh,
role
cool.
playing game.
Oh, that's
Uh,
nice.
so yeah, so like a purely historical Age of Sail role playing, and I'll tell you what, I just learned that um, all of Sequest is available on Peacock here in the United States.
Really?
So I think I might do like a Sea Trek,
Yeah.
like spoof kind of
Yeah.
role playing game as well that can easily take some concepts from Star Trek Adventures
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and be applied.
Oh
So
wow, Sequest, that takes me back. That would be fun though. That would
yeah,
be
yeah.
cool. Yeah, good idea. One question, one additional question though with sentience, is it possible to? Would it be easy to use sentience with the captain's log streamlined rules?
Yes. So one of the things that I've been poking Modiphius about was, hey, now that Captain's Log has this new 2d20 system, is that going to be added to the SRD? Will we be able to
Hmm.
use it to create some content? I finally heard back from Chris Birch saying, yes, we want you to do that. Go nuts.
Good.
I've toyed with the idea of a sentience book in the near future called Sentience Your Awakening.
Oh.
And basically, it's a solo game from the moment that you recognize that you were a thing.
Oh, that's
So the
perfect.
second that your emotions show up, that's where your solo campaign starts.
Now, would it be mainly focused on like character creation during play, since you are basically just waking up at that moment? So it
Yes,
follows
that
the
would be a
rules.
part of it.
Oh man, that sounds good. That sounds
Right.
really fun.
So like in character creation now, you
Yeah.
have like defining moments, you
Mhm.
have your social groups and things like that. But during the solo game, as you travel and have these experiences, then your character levels up
Yeah.
and gains more stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is. Oh, I can't wait for that. That would be good. So you got
So
a lot of things coming up here that I hope you come back and share them with us again, because that's a
yeah,
lot of good stuff.
I love chatting with you. I think your ideas are great, and we have a lot in common. I know how you always talk about how you appreciate their missions and mission briefs, but you seldom go to them. I'm the same way, man.
Yeah.
I prefer to
Yeah.
write my own stuff.
I'm
In
glad you
fact,
understand.
a lot of the stuff that I've put into these books are missions that I've run in the past with my groups, that I really enjoyed. You know, like the in the lower decks guide, I wrote second prototype,
Hmm.
which is the third mission in the book, and I ran Michael Dismuke and his whole crew through that entire mission, and they had no idea that I was putting it in the lower decks book.
Oh man, that's cool. So you got to surprise them with it when they they got their copies.
Michael didn't realize it until we were halfway through a continuing conversation episode,
Oh,
and he's
really?
like, "Wait, did we play this?"
Oh, that's great. You got to surprise him with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you could relate. There's one player in my group that he just constantly ribs me about that because he says I mention it all the time, but I just feel bad because I feel like I don't want to come off as like I think my stories are better than the stuff that's out there. It's just the way my brain works. I want to make my own stuff. I got so many ideas that I feel like, okay, if I take someone else's idea, I would much rather have that person run the game
Sure.
rather than me interpret it. I'd rather just use something I already know inside and out and see what the players do with it. But
Right.
that's why, like, and I say I can't really get too many sessions with my group simply because of logistics. So some of the stories that really worked well, I write up. And there's some stories that like I love this idea, but I just can't do it. I don't have time, so I write it up, and I've been sending them to Michael for continuing missions. So
Yeah.
they're up there. So I'm trying to get them out because there's too much floating around up there. But I'm glad
I
I'm glad you understand where I'm coming from. Thank you.
One of the things that I said to Jim when I first met him, since I've started writing, I have said anything that a content creator for an RPG puts on paper is a suggestion.
Mm,
It's not the law, it's not the Bible. It is a suggestion of something you could do uh, during your game. Ultimately, it's your game as the GM. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, and if you only want to take like one scene or one encounter or one story thread or or one world piece out of this book or out of this adventure, do it. Like
Yeah.
it's the rest is just a suggestion of things you could do, and building up good GMs, I think helps with that.
That is such a good way of looking at it, because I think especially new GMs too, they feel they are too restricted. They don't really know how much leeway they have when they're reading an adventure, like a pre-generated adventure or a mission. I think a lot of new GMs in particular think they have to stick to it. But yeah, everything that's perfect. It's a suggestion. You take it whatever you like from it and you change whatever works best for your own group, your own story, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, good way of looking at it. Well, I can see why Jim got you on the project. You're just full of ideas and just great insight. And I think especially Player's Guide, Game Master's Guide, that reflects a lot of the heart you bring to Star Trek Adventures. And now with your own, congratulations again, that's amazing, your own RPG, Sentience. I
Yeah.
am going to finish reading it. I have the PDF. It's open. It's open on two computers to be truthful. So whether I'm on my work computer or if I'm on this computer, I can continue reading. So I am going to
I
try.
should be so hopefully today the revised quick start guide will be up,
Okay.
and that has some pre-generated characters and
Oh.
a mission in it that I think touched upon some of the concepts that you were mentioning earlier about like our creators and our religions and
Oh.
things like that.
I will have
Like
to take a look for that.
you're going to see a lot of these missions in Sentience that I'm publishing are going to have social discussion.
Good. Good. I love that. I love that. That those are the kind of stories that really get my blood going. That I really want
Yeah,
to
same.
play. I want to see. That is awesome. Okay, well, I just glanced down and saw that indeed I managed to drag this out to almost an hour. So,
Yes.
yeah, we did it. We did it. Yeah, but no, I thank you for sharing so much. Thank you for introducing not just your work on Star Trek Adventures, but the whole of the 2d20 world builders and your own just gorgeous, gorgeous, exciting game, Sentience. So, thank you for coming here and talking about it today.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me. And anytime, just reach out. And I'm sure myself or anyone else on the writing staff would be happy to try to make time to chat with you because we appreciate everything that you do. And, this community is better because you're a part of it. So we
Oh
appreciate
my
that.
goodness! Yeah, I didn't pay him to say that. And he went, oh my god! Yeah, yeah. I'm not used to getting like positive comments. So thank you very much. No, I appreciate, and of course it's right back at you. Like everything that you and everyone that's associated with this game, Star Trek Adventures, has put out. It's just so encouraging, and I think it makes more people want to play when they see just how enthusiastic the people who actually make the game are for it. There's no boring episodes of continuing conversations. They are all so animated and fun to watch. So,
Yeah, everyone is super excited to be doing what we're doing. We feel this is a gift and we're gonna take care of it for as long as we can.
Yeah, that's good. And Godspeed, just keep on going. And can't wait to see what the surprise is. When it comes out, you have to come back. You have to let us know.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I better wrap it up. Again, we're hitting the 1 hour mark, but I want to thank you again, Al Spader, for joining us today. Wonderful to meet you, sir. And as I said, don't be a stranger. Come back. You could come back as much as you want. If you have an idea, just tell me. You want to talk about it, please, anytime. You're welcome, sir.
Awesome. And I'm sure that the same holds true with any writer from Star Trek Adventures. I'm sure they'd love to chat with you.
Well, I'll cross my fingers and try my luck with them. See if I get any response. But thank you very much. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you all check out Sentience RPG on DriveThruRPG. As always, there will be links to all the big stuff we talked about, especially that game. So please check it out and have fun. Just keep on gaming. But thank you for watching. As always, I will see you in the future. So live long and prosper. Still can't do the Vulcan salute. So peace and long life. Thank you.